So is my audio still on? Oh dear. Oh, that went live automatically. I'll have to cut out the start of this. All right, let's go.
Young, and we didn't want to be exposed. Even though it was cold, we were never wearing proper clothes. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, smoking cigarettes behind the school. Always trying to be cool, trying to be those bad guys, you know. I still think about what we had when we were younger. We were never running out of time. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. Driving in a car, never knowing how far we go. When we were younger, a girl, I would sneak into her parents' house. I could stay for hours, and we looked into each other's eyes. Hey, I thought I was Romeo, I was looking for my Juliet. And as soon as I left, I told my friends. Those days made me who I am. When we were younger, we were never running out of time. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. Driving in a car, not knowing how far we go. When we were younger, when we were younger. As long as we had each other, oh, everything was black and white. When we were younger.
Well, welcome everyone. Yeah, for our usual show, this stupid YouTube. I didn't even go live on there. I just put it live on my software, and it went live on YouTube automatically. That's why you could all hear me. I didn't even realise. So I was still getting organised. Santa, I love it. Thanks, Aaron. This is my lockdown look. What do you think, Mr. Beard? It's not, as I discussed with Aaron the other day too, this is not, I'm just looking up at the monitor up there. It's not actually grey. This is blonde. Oh, I love it. It's grown a bit more. This is the longest beard I've ever had. I'm just getting past the itchy stage though. What do you think, guys? Do you like it or do you hate it? I said to Kerry last night, I said, well, what do you think? Do you like it or what? And I think she does. So it's a different look anyway, isn't it? Now, before I say hi to everyone, I want to show you something that I've come up with. Now, you all know how Jared Poland does presets and things like that and makes money on the side. Well, I have come up with the most amazing device that if you're a Canon user and you're into the R5 or the R6, you are going to love this. So if you want to pre-order it, I'll have it up fairly soon because it's like I said, it is really, really amazing technology that I've come up with. And if you're an Aussie particularly, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is going to be pretty expensive, but it's going to be worth it if you're shooting with the R5 and the R6, particularly if you're doing weddings. So are you ready for it? Okay. So this is my latest system for the Canon R5 if you're shooting weddings here in the Australian summer. Now it's called the Canon R5 cooling system. As you can see, it's got a very good name there that's printed on this. Now inside this, it comes with a few extras. So it comes with wheels, so you can wheel this around on the wedding day. And obviously you can put inside this, it comes with a few extras. So I'm going to show you what the extras are. So it comes with, this is called the small ice cube. This is the small version of the ice cube there. Now there's also a larger ice cube as well. So this will be the ultimate. Now, you can buy these in packs of 5, depending on how hot the temperature is on the day. Oops, you can see that it won't break. This is called the EOS R5 Esky cooling system. What do you think? So it is going to be up for pre-order. Let me just move that out of the way. See, I'm just unbelievable. I just come up with all of these ideas. This thing, as people are saying there, liquid liquid nitrogen, I come up with the most amazing ideas. Seriously, I'm brilliant. I just thought of that. And if you want to pre-order those now, I'll put the link down below. I'm probably going to put them around about the $200 mark, but it's probably going to make your EOS R5 last 5 minutes longer. I mean, what more could you want than that? Let's be honest about it. All right, let me see who's here. We are in pre-show, guys. If you don't want to watch all of me being stupid or whatever or going through this, I will stick a timeline down below so you can skip to what you want to go to. I just want to say hi to a few people here. Let me just quit that. So the video that I did at the beginning too was shot with the A9. Don't underestimate using the A9 for video. I still think it's my favorite camera at the moment, unless I get the A7S III, of course. But it's my favorite camera at the moment to shoot video. The full frame on that camera is beautiful. Even though you haven't got picture profiles, that was the standard picture profile that I used there. It's just amazing. And that was with the Sony 135 GM. So let's see who's here. Hero's here. YouTube is also talking about the EOS article is just conjecture. I think he was talking about because it cooled down in the freezer. I'm going to talk about that today. Carl said all you need is a small cooler and some dry ice. That's funny, Carl. You picked it before I even thought about it. Hangs for Fun said, I can't tell if you guys are serious or being sarcastic about the lengths you have to go to use a $3,900 camera. No thumbs down. There will be now. There's not actually. There's no thumbs down yet. I love it. Oh, that's not on, is it? No. What else? Ben's here. G'day, Ben. Haven't seen you for a while. Barry's here as well. Mark said hello. There is something going noisy. Yeah, the stupid YouTube, it went live without me doing anything. I don't know what was going on. They're lucky I wasn't swearing or something. Carl said the mic's open. Yeah, the sound of Dave smashing the Sonys in the background. I love it. Let me keep going down. No bad words, Carl said. You can just as well talk, David. Like I said, I didn't know it was on, Mark. He starts going off about how much he hates us all. Laugh out loud. Oh, I love it. Hi from Southern Ontario. Go Leafs. Go. Oh, wait, never mind. What's Leafs? Is that a football team or something? The Essential Light said, I'm here for the EOS HD controversy about the overheating. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Aaron said he's leaving too because I just left everyone sitting there while we were working. I hope when I upload this, I'll try and cut that out, I think. Sister Man said, hey, Collins said, mod video photos. I was doing some DIY at home and my drill overheated. Tim said, so is the Canon R5 the most advanced yet most cripple camera they have ever produced? Oh, I'm going to talk about it. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if I was a Canon user, honestly. Long Rider said, Mr. Osler to stage 3, please. Mr. Osler to stage 3. That's what I'm in now. They call it the lockdown. I'm in his stage 3 lockdown. That's what I'm in. Yeah, hope Aaron is okay with the weather over there. He's had some bad weather, that's for sure. Ted said, middle of the night here in Holland, just happy to be live for once now that David is overheated. Well, thank you for joining us, Ted. He's fixing his hair. Oh, love it. Photo Ike's in here as well. Photo Me Ike. Colin said, YouTube has changed things for live streaming. Yeah, they have. Like I said, I only put the live on the, I use Ycast, and I went live on that. And then for some reason, usually you have to go live on YouTube, but it did it itself, which is a bit dangerous, I think. What else have we got? Checking in from Houston. Keith is here. David, you should make your weekly image. Oh, yes, you make Rebecca your weekly imager model. Yeah, I know. I love Rebecca. She's amazing. I'm going to do a pin-up shoot with Rebecca once we get out of this horrible lockdown as well. Santa, I love it. So people are saying they like the beard. So do you like it, guys? Or I just thought it's something different. I've never had one in my life, so this is totally new for me. Carol said she likes it. Lockdown look, Gillette share prices has gone down 15%. I love it. A face should never have more fur than the head. Oh, boy. Oh, I love it. Laugh my beard and jokes. You guys, it's shocking. Cut a hole in it so the lens will stick out. Oh, I love it. Bad Habit said you're going to piss Vanessa Joy off. I laughed when Vanessa Joy said everyone's going to switch from the Sony to the Canon. I bet she hates that she said that now because she put a whole video up about that to say that she was going to, everyone was going to switch. All the people that had gone to Sony were going to switch back. Or she must regret saying that. Keep the beard, I did it. Have you got one as well, Ben, now? Big one? Everyone's talking about that. About my liquid nitrogen cooler. What else have we got? David, first time watching live in a few months. Great design in that cooling system. I know, Alex, it took me a lot of thought to come up with that system, but I think it's a great system, and I think I can make some serious YouTube money out of it. Best hockey team in the world, are they? Okay. A9 135, yep, sweet combo. I'm telling you, I love that combination. Rob said, Leafs are the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey NFL team who once again got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Oh, okay. Been enjoying the live chats, live streams better than live TV, and that's about it. Okay, so we're up to it. Let me start the show, and then we'll get stuck into it. Well, welcome everyone. Back for our usual Thursday, Friday show, depending on where you are in the world. It's Friday here. got some really interesting stories today to talk about. We're going to start talking about the Sony A5 to start with, and then we're going to go looking at some stuff from the A7S III, and then I'm going to talk about some Canon stuff as well, and just a couple of little bits of news articles at the end. So we should have a good show, actually. It should be interesting. So let's get stuck into it. The first story today is really interesting. Because this, to me, says for start that the cameras that are going to come from now on from Sony are probably going to have 4K 60 if this rumor is true. It's saying a while rumor, the Sony A5, we don't know what it's going to be called yet. It's A5, A6 or whatever they're going to call it, has IBIS 4K 60p, 5 frames per second and a pop-up EVF. Now, they're saying that it's sort of a mix between the bodies of the A7, sort of A7 III, because you can see that from the handle that you see here, and the A6 400. That's sort of how it looks. So it's interesting to see what they're sort of showing there. I would have thought that it would have probably been, I would have liked it to have seen the A7 III body, personally. But they may be going with this A6 400 type body that they've added this extra grip on and everything else. So, it's interesting. So, but the points that really interest me is the fact that they're saying that this can do 4K 60. Now, I'm wondering if that's even possible in say, the size of an A6 400, because I would have thought they would have had overheating problems in a body that was that size. So, I'm not sure that I'll believe the mock-up. I think it probably, it is an A6 600 body, yeah. It does, doesn't it? Because it has the new battery in the A6 600, yes. Thanks, Tim, you're right. But like I said, I'm not sure whether they can fit 4K 60 and that without it overheating. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can do that. I would have thought that it would have been better to say go with an A7 III type body that gave a little bit more room and an EVF. But they're saying there's no EVF, so it might make sense. There might be some pop-up flash system or EVF that they can sort of get into this camera. But they're saying, let me just go down here and just talk about what they're saying. They're saying a new body design, similar to the A5 or the A6. Mixed metal and plastic. The grip is pretty large to accommodate the battery, so it's probably going to have the Z battery. I would say that's what it's going to have. 5 frames per second, IBIS. No pop-up flash. There is a pop-up EVF with a 770,000 pixel EVF, so it's not a very good one. Also touchscreen like the A7S III. Now, if that's the case too, it means that the touchscreens are now going to be the default for the cameras coming forward from this stage. And I would expect that to be the case anyway. I'm even sort of hoping that they bring out a touchscreen for the ZV-1. I mean, I'm hoping that's possible. It'll be interesting to see if that can be done through firmware. What else are they saying? It says records 4K 24, 10-bit, 100 megabits per second, 4K 30, 10-bit, 100 megabits per second, and even 4K 60, 50 and 60 4K, but it's really crippled. They told me no audio, cropped, and works only in S&Q mode. Okay, so that might make more sense. If it's cropped down, perhaps that will help with the heat. There's no detail yet about resolution, what this will be yet, but they're saying that they think it will be announced mid-September, so we're only, a month away from this. So there's a couple of interesting things about this. They're not mentioning whether it'll have a flip-out screen like what the ZV-1 has. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the cameras now that come out go that way. I'm thinking even the A7 IV comes out. But this is quite interesting. So I'm wondering now, what are they going to give us on the A7 IV if this comes out with 4K 60. Now, I know it's probably going to only have one card slot. They're saying that it's just going to have the one card slot. So I suppose that puts it out of professional use. You probably won't have the picture profile, say, for instance. It's only got the 5 frames per second, but it is saying that it's got IBIS. So, boy, what are they going to add to the A7 IV? because they would have to, remember, this is going to be the entry-level full-frame camera. So this is what they're marketing as the entry-level full-frame Sony camera. And above that, there'll be the a7 III, which they'll probably keep selling, and then there'll be the a7 IV, which will jump above that. So now I'm starting to think that perhaps the a7 IV will have more megapixels. If this is, say, still the 20-odd megapixel size, I've got a feeling then that the a7 IV may up to 35 megapixels or something like that with 4K 60. And perhaps if this has 4K, as it's saying down here, it's going to have 4K 24 10-bit at 100 megabits per second. Perhaps they'll give us 4K 200 megabits per second or something on the a7 IV. Because remember, they've got to give you a reason why you would jump up. Now, as a given, I think any camera that now comes out, apart from this one, I think all the other cameras that come out will have the dual card slots in the fact that you'll be able to put the CF Express A in them. I think that now will become the standard, and I think that's because Sony will want to sell as many of those cards as they can. Remember, it's almost a proprietary card at the moment. Sony are the only ones that are going to be using that, so they're going to want to get their money back. So I would think that any of the new cameras that come out are going to have that dual sort of card system now with the CF Express. But this is not a bad camera. I mean, if you wanted to get in and shoot some great vlogging stuff, I mean, wow. I mean, if this is true what they're saying, you could shoot 4K 60. Yes, it's only to one card. It's going to have IBIS built in. I probably think it will have a fully articulating screen. Now that they've started to do that, I think it would have that. It may be that this one, for the first one, they give the same screen as what we've got with the a6-600 and the a6-400, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stick an articulating screen on this. It looks like they're saying we possibly could get the touch screen, and it's going to have a pop-up EVF. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, is it something that you're interested in? I mean, it'll be interesting to see where they price this. It's sort of not, well, I don't know, is this a comparison against the R6? Probably not. It's probably more lower end than the R6. I think the a7 IV will be the competitor to the R6, but I am surprised that they're saying 4-bit records 4K 24p at 10-bit. Sizzleman said probably 420. Yeah, and it probably will be. I don't think it will be 422. That's for sure. And like I said, the bit depths too would be probably much less on this than what you'd have in an a7 IV, but it's interesting. I still believe that we will probably get an a7 IV announced before the end of the year. I think this probably will be announced next month, as they're saying in the middle of September, and then probably released a few weeks after that. That still gives us enough time as it goes on to release an a7 IV by the end of the year. I think that's probably what I'm sort of picking as, what will be. So what do you think? Let me know in the live chat. And if you're not in the live chat, let me know in the comment box down below whether you think you'd be interested in something like this. I'm not sure if it's in, say, the body size of the a6-500 or 6-600, what the IBIS will be like. Is there enough movement in that as compared to, say, the a7 III? That would be the interesting thing. But I do wonder, like I said, about overheating. Perhaps you may only get, say, 4K 50 or 60 for a very short period of time. Like it might be just that you might be able to shoot with it for 5 minutes, which is like the RX cameras had, where you had a time limit on it. So that could be the big difference, say, between this and, say, something like going for the a7 IV. Or then obviously you step up again if you want to go full videography and you're going to the a7S III. So it's interesting anyway. I mean, I think it's not something I would buy. I mean, I'm always honest with you. I don't think I'd have any interest in this at all. I think I would get an a7 III or the a7 IV before I got this. But for an option, like Marcus said, for a pocketable full-frame camera, it would be good. And for using, say, something for a vlogging type scenario, if it is the a6-600 type body and you have all those features in it with hopefully, like I said, a flip-out screen or something, it might be a great option that you can use. And it also may bring people into the Sony realm. Remember, if you buy this, then obviously you could use the APS-C mount lenses, but then people would also then be able to buy the full frame on it. That's the advantage of having that APS-C mount, is that it also uses the full frame lenses as well. So it's interesting. I just want to see what people are saying about this. Let me just go over here. I've got to drag this over. So did I do that whole thing then without showing it? Oh, I hope I didn't. Did I show the Did I actually show the pictures, what I was doing, or I didn't? Let me know in the chat, because I wasn't sure. I think I was on the wrong thing. That's a good start today. I've been blitzed because I didn't realise I was streaming. So yeah, just in case. Anyway, this is the. Oh, yes, you did see it. Oh, well, that's good. So you did. Okay, thanks, Aaron. So let's see what people are saying about it, because I'm just curious. So let me know whether you think you'd be interested in this or not. I'm just curious. Tim said, if your cooling system has been designed for Canon, surely it has been crippled some way. Hi, David and all. Hi, how are you? I've got 2 thumbs down. I knew I'd get them eventually. Steve said, the R5 is the most advanced stills photography camera ever made. It also has some impressive video. It is a very good stills camera, Steve. That's true. The only issue is that if you use it for stills, it is still potential to overheat. And if you go to shoot video with it, it's compromised. I noticed this morning, Potato Jet, I watched a video that he posted this morning, and he cancelled his R5 pre-order. And then the guy that he was talking with, I can't remember who it was, but he said he was shooting stills, and then he said, I went to switch over to video and it couldn't do it. It was saying there was no time available. So it's compromised. That's the problem. Mark said, is on my side, or did the video halt at times? Okay, that's, I don't know, Mark, but it looks like it's saying good health here. I stopped keeping up before the a7S III. Did they have 4K 60? Yes. Rob said, everyone is complaining about the R5 and the R6 overheating. I used to work in a place that the computer system generated so much heat that the building needed air conditioning. Excuse me. 24/7, even in winter. It is the a6 600. Yeah, I forgot about that. I was thinking about my a6 400 body that I've got, Tim. Greg said, seems odd they wouldn't include a pop-up EVF like the RF cameras. Well, that's what they're saying that they might put in it. Oh, yeah, so they're saying there is a pop-up EVF, Greg. It's that 770,000 pixel EVF. It's a 2.3 megapixel or something. It says down here. Where was it? Right there. 0.6 magnification. So it's that they're saying. So they are looking like that. I suppose because they're going to get rid of the flash, it may go in there. But I don't think the a6 600 has a pop-up flash, does it? Let me just come back. I think they'd have to put an EVF in it. I mean, I would be really disappointed if you only had a rear screen. I mean, look, that's the case with this, but this is really flouted as a vlogging camera. But if it's in bright sunlight, it can be a bit hard sometimes to get your exposure. And remember, this is more sort of meant to be a video camera. This will be touted more as a stills camera, or, well, probably a little bit of a hybrid type camera. But if you're going to shoot stills, you really need an EVF. So I'm hoping they do put an EVF in it, that's for sure. Rob said, I wish Sony would announce the opposite of what the F5 and F6 is expected to be. I want a high-end APS-C Mini A9 with a 20 to 25 megapixel sensor, 10 to 15 frames per second, global shutter, and a great EVF. Do you guys think that's the end of the A6000 series camera, though, if this comes out? If they use a full-frame sensor in that body, is that the end of the APS-C type cameras? I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. They're not saying whether it's a full-frame mount or it's an APS-C crop mount in that, though, are they? That's not mentioned anywhere, I don't think. Oh, no, it's full frame. It has to be, yeah. So it's got to be the full frame mount. What am I saying? Yeah, I was losing train of thought there. Yeah, so it's a full frame mount because it's a full frame sensor. Forget that question that I was just saying. But I'm not sure whether... We haven't heard anything about any updates on the a6000 series type cameras. So is that finished? I don't know. Do you guys still think there is enough room for that or not? I wish they could do a touch interface via firmware. I don't think... Sony have already admitted, Kevin, that wasn't going to happen. So it looks like we're not going to get that at all. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed for people that have the A9 II and also the A7R4. I would have hoped that they could have done at least that because they're their current bodies, and I would have hoped that they could have updated the screens for that. And like I said, I'm always sort of hoping that they do it for the ZV-1. I mean, I think that'd be fantastic if they could do that as well. I don't think we're going to get it, though. I think you're going to have to buy the newer cameras for that. Tasm said A7 IV will have 6K 30. Interesting. Mark said, was there not a dwarf called Doc who looked like David in a beard mode? Shall we say the A7 IV will have 4K 60 10-bit? Sean said, hello, everyone. Leslie said, does that mean the Sony a6000 series is on the way out? Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering too, Leslie. I'm not sure about that, but interesting. Rob said it's on SAR, so it must be true. Yeah, I love it. Sizzleman said the 10-bit will probably be 420, and I think that's the case too. This camera, the A5, will, I guarantee, will only be 420. It won't be 422. Ted said, what's left for the FX6 as successor to the FS5 in their lineup? I'm not sure, Ted, actually. It is getting really interesting that, you know, the A7S is such a good camera. I think people that are really high-ended, though, would still buy FX9s, for instance, though. That would be the thing, and then they'd use probably the A7S III as a B cam to that. But I'm not sure about the FX6. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Tim said, great beginner's full frame. It is, and particularly if they price it well. If they're aggressive in the pricing on this, it's a great way to get people into the Sony system, which would be fantastic. Because Venom said he'd buy it. Kevin said they should make this A5, A6 camera with a lens, like a 16 1.4 with lens stabilization. Interesting. Ike said, what's the point of this camera if the A7 III still exists? That's what I'm not sure about either, Ike. But I think they're going to price it out, and then they're going to have an A7 IV, which will be, you know, above that again. It probably will be cheap. I think this will be a very aggressively priced camera, Kevin. I think you're right. Can't they just reduce the cost of the A7 III when the A7 IV comes out? Well, they probably could, but we don't know, I suppose, about if this is really pocketable. That could really appeal to a marketplace, like I said, the vloggers and people like that want to travel very light. So it could appeal to people like that. It doesn't really appeal to me, but that could be the thing. What else have we got? If it's APS-C, it's probably done. Yeah, I don't think it will be, though. I think it's going to be full frame. Having thought about it, I think it will be full frame. Does Casey know you're using his Cripple Hammer? I'm sure Casey wouldn't mind. Hello, David. My dream A5 would be the new Sony phone software for the phone camera. An ILCE full-frame camera with super easy auto software for the masses. I'm in. I know that would be fantastic, particularly because the Sony's phones are so good. Mark said, really considering that Sigma lens. It sounds great, and I'm shopping for a 1.4. Are you talking about the, which one? The 16 1.4? I love that. I've got that lens. That's what I'm using right now, if that's the one you're talking about. Mark, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Pete says, oh yeah, I said that. APS-C is going to be is going to end before too long. Yeah, I think I'm starting to agree with that as well. Ike said, if the A5 exists, then the A6600 is a hard sell. The A6400 would be cool, though. Why so slow 5 frames per second? Well, probably deliberately. It's probably done that deliberately, so if you need more than that, you'll go to the a7 III or the a7 IV. That's the only thing that I can think of. Remember, they have to give you things with these lower-ended cameras to try and make you want to go up to the next stage. If they gave you everything in this camera, no one will go out and buy the a7 IV, for instance. So they probably will keep it down fairly low. This is going to be their real basics, no frills. But having said that, no frills. They're saying it's going to have 4K 60 in it with 100 megabits. I mean, it looks like it's pretty good. What else have we got? There is room for an advanced APS-C A9 version. Let me just see what anyone else says. Greg said, I think APS-C will end with the a6600 and Sony will go all in full frame and maybe look at medium format in the near future. Well, they already do the sensors, Greg, don't they? So that's quite possible. Mark said Sony already has the DSC-RX1 and this could be the upgrade, perhaps. Thomas, thank you, Moving Matt. I'm a Canon shooter at this point, but I have to say I'm nervous that I bought into that system. If they do not fix the R5, they can financially afford to lose another round to Sony. Can they financially afford to lose another round to Sony? I'm going to talk about that, Matt, in when we go to the Canon stuff soon. So I'm going to talk about that because it's not good. But there is a firmware upgrade that they've said they're going to come out. So I'll talk about that when I move over to that. But thank you so much for the donations. Hopefully I can sort of talk about that when we go to the Canon stuff shortly. Rob said APS-C has its place. It's great for extended reach, and it is. And that's where I often use APS-C mode in my full-frame cameras. Venom said, if it's like 1,000 United States dollars and the a7 III is like 1,700, that's a huge difference. Plus, people will like the a600 bodies too. I like it. I mean, I must admit, I do like the a6-400 if I'm traveling and stuff. It's a nice size body, nice and small, easy to carry around. It's great if you're using it on a gimbal because it's so small. So there are advantages to that. And like I said, vloggers would probably love that if it has a flip-out screen or even the fold-up screen. Flip out will be better though. Photo Ike said, if you really cared about APS-C, we would shoot Fuji. Yeah, that's what you're saying. That's what you'd like to announce. Yep, I understand that. Thanks for that donation, Moving Matt. And that's it. All right, so let's go on to the next story. This is more about the a7S III though. I saw this on, I think it's DP Review. I have to hide that because it was in another language and I'm not sure what it was. Sorry. If it's not in English, I just don't know what it actually was saying. The A7S, this is on DP Review. Talking about the rolling shutter, and it looks like the rolling shutter of the A7S is really remarkable, really. Like, we're getting to the stage now where it really is usable, very usable. And in fact, everything I've seen shows that if you pan fairly quickly, there's a fraction of moving rolling shutter there, but if you don't have that rolling shutter or that real fast movement, the rolling shutter is way better than anything Sony has produced before. And in fact, they're talking about it here, and they're saying that the rolling shutter is impressive. It's sub 10 milliseconds in all video modes. So they've done, it's incredible. Are you saying my audio's out of sync, is it? Mick, let me know if it is. There's not much I can do about it, but yeah, so they're saying that it's in all video modes, so that's incredible. It says the readout rate is a fraction too slow to allow 120, hence that's the need of that slight crop. And remember, it is only a very, very slight crop that you're dealing with the a7S III. The sensor has a dual conversion gain design, switching over at 4.66 EV above base IO, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, sorry, whoever it is talking about the stuff. If it's not in English, I just can't show it because I'm not sure what it actually is, so I have to hide it. I've got no idea, so sorry. So also coming down here, it shows some other things. It's showing the rolling shutter. It says it takes a different approach to one of them, to the one used in more stills focused cameras. Rather than taking advantage of high megapixel count sensor to give more detailed footage, the a7S III uses just a handful more than the bare minimum required to shoot 4K. And I think this is also why it gives such good video and also such good rolling shutter, and there's such lack of heat. So it's showing that at 4K 60, 30 and 24 it's 8.7 milliseconds. At 4K 120 it's 7.7, and 4K steady shot, well, that's when you're using the active, at 60p 30p it's 7.8 milliseconds. So it really is amazing, really. And like it, I think we've got to the point now where rolling shutter really isn't much of an issue anymore, unless you are really doing these, like I think Philip Bloom discussed it, and he said unless you're really doing a very, very fast sort of whip pan, the rolling shutter is going to be fantastic. And in fact, he says he thinks you need that little bit of rolling shutter if you are doing a whip pan, because it sort of blends into what you're trying to do, which is to show that movement. But it's really interesting now that these have been measured, and I thought that's why I'd share it with you. With the dual gain ISO, and I'm not quite certain why Sony never made a big deal about this, because I think it's a pretty amazing feature. It actually has two ISO, so it is using the dual gain. It's saying, as is common with modern large sensors, the a7S III has a dual gain sensor. Sony doesn't draw attention to this because they never even mentioned it, and that was what was really interesting about this, either in its marketing or in the camera's interface. But most of its large sensors dating back to the original a7S have had dual gain design. Now, what it shows is that you have two, and they're talking about in the standard color profile, they're saying the base ISO is 80. So that's what the base ISO in the standard color profile. So that's where you're going to get your best noise when you're shooting at the lowest ISO possible. If you then step up, you get the best ISO at around ISO 2000. So this is in the standard picture profile. So what that's saying is if you get up to say 1200, 1400, 1600, you're probably better off to jump up to ISO 2000 and you'll get a much cleaner image. So this is really interesting. The next stage, though, is when you're using S-Log 2 or 3. The two ISOs you have there are ISO 640, so you get obviously the minimum you can shoot when you're using S-Log 2 or S-Log 3 is 640 ISO, so that's your base ISO. But then the next stage, the second gain step, it steps in, is at 16,000 ISO. So if you're at, say, 12,000 ISO, for instance, you're probably way better to bump it up to 1600 ISO, or even, it sounds funny, but it might even be that you have to put an ND on and bump your ISO up to 16,000. Now, I did notice on a couple of the reviews they showed it, and it is a drastic difference when that dual gain ISO steps in. So it's really interesting that they've done that. I mean, it's not interesting, but it's interesting that they never talked about it in any of their promos or literature or anything like that, and it really does give you a big boost. So if you are shooting S-Log 2 or 3, if you are getting anywhere near that 16,000, like if you're 10,000 ISO or something like that, you might be better off to bump the ISO up to 16,000 ISO. So that's that. Let me go to the next. Oh, actually, before we do it, let me just see if anyone's got any questions, because then I'm going to go to the Canon stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry about that language. I just wasn't sure what it was saying. That's the problem. Yeah, so the audio is in sync. I'm not sure why it was saying. Greg said, big news, Canon was hacked and lost all the client cloud photos in their system. Tony Northrup did a very interesting YouTube video on the problem and Canon's implementation of the system. I know it's terrible. What happened was that Canon are really flouting this feature where you can shoot and then directly just go up onto the web, basically. And so that was the big thing about this, was this whole thing they were pushing, saying, you know, once you set this up, you can just use the cloud. Everything gets up to the cloud and it's all up there for when you want to use it. The problem was, I'm not sure whether it was hacked or whether it actually had an issue, but they lost everything. And what happened was, I think they even lost backups, or they weren't doing backups. If you watch Tony Northrup's video about it, he was saying it's a disaster, and now he's saying really they should get rid of the whole system and they should give you the ability to upload to other servers that are out there. Say it might be something like Dropbox or something like that, but he basically said in that video that Canon should give up on that feature, keep it in the camera, but offer it to other servers. So interesting, excuse me. So that's another disaster. They also were hacked, I believe, and they've been put a ransom attack as well. It hasn't been good for anything with Canon lately, unfortunately, for them. Ike said, now that I think about it, the R5 kind of reminds me of Orville Martell from Game of Thrones. We got all excited that it was going to flip the script, only be taken out by the Lannisters. I love it. Joe said, hello from Lilydale. Is the A7S good enough in terms of taking a picture? I discussed that with Aaron, Joe, on Wednesday's show or Tuesday's show. If you want to go back, you'll see we talk about that extensively. It depends. If you don't want to enlarge your pictures too much and you crop in camera, 12 megapixels is fine. I used to shoot weddings with 12 megapixels and it was fine. If you are the type of shooter that likes to crop in, it's not. If you want to do that sort of stuff and print, it's not. If you're into high-end retouching, you want to do it like high-end sort of skin retouching. If you're into, say, photographing jewelry, things like that, where you need massive amounts of detail and things like that, no. But if you just need a camera that can shoot nice portraits, you're not going to enlarge it much. You're just going to really view them, say, on Instagram or on the screen, on Facebook. 12 megapixels is ample. So if you're watching it on a 4K TV, 12 megapixels is ample. It really just depends on the way you shoot. Like I said, I don't crop in camera. I don't crop in post. 99% of the time I will crop in camera. So I probably could get away with using 12 megapixels, and I did do that with my when I used to shoot Nikon, which was the D3S and stuff like that. So I'm going to put out a video soon, I think, that shows the images that I took with the Nikon. So for people that are thinking, what can you get from a 12 megapixel camera, I think I'll put out a video to show what I used to shoot at that resolution. So it'll sort of answer those questions. So stay tuned for that. Hope I answered that question for you anyway. My understanding was that S-Log3, the minimum ISO was 160. No, that's not base ISO though. That's using the extended ISO range though. So you'll lose quality if you go down to that. That was showing base ISO that I was showing before. Rob said, I thought it was a ransomware attack. Yeah, it was. I'm not sure if it's the same thing that attacked their servers where their images went up. I'm not sure. CJ64 said, if all the rumour specs is very tempting, even though I own the A6400, but if they really have to price is smart, because the A6600 is like $1,400 and the A6400 is $900. So you're talking about what will they price the full frame at? Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? If they price this full frame similar to the A6600, I think APS-C is finished. Because where can it go? I mean, you would buy the full frame, then get the APS-C unless you needed that reach. You can probably shoot APS-C mode in this as well. They haven't said that yet, but you probably could. So you could still get the reach in this camera as well. I suppose there's going to be a megapixel hit though. That would be the issue. Ike said, imaging, tell your client, don't worry, even my ESR has one card slot. I got all your photos backed up on Canon's cloud, so they're safe. I know, it's so bad. Mark, they are having a bad run, I know. Charbox said, the A7S IBIS is disappointing. Panasonic, Olympus, Canon, IBIS is so much better. Yeah, look, it still doesn't beat those cameras. I agree with you, Charbox. The Canon is much better. It looks like from the latest firmware, according to Potato Jet, he said that they fixed that horrible sort of strobing or whatever it is that you're getting, pulsing that you were getting at the edges. But from what he was shooting, I'm not convinced, because he didn't show it long enough to see anything in the background blurring. I would have liked to sort of get him to show something like a landscape pic, or, you know, in a room where you could actually see it. He just sort of showed him walking in the beach and, you know, there was clouds and stuff, and I'm not sure whether that would really show it. So we'll have to wait and see if that has been fixed, because there's that like pulsing that was going on. But the stabilization, yes, is better in the Canons, and Olympus is amazing. Panasonic is also amazing, but I think with that new active feature, it's usable, and that's all really I care about, that it's usable. Now, it's not usable to really, well, it is. You can get away with walking, but it's not as fantastic as, say, if you're using a Canon or an Olympus or a Panasonic. I mean, I know what that's like to use it with the ZV-1, and it's actually quite good. Don't forget too, you can take it into that, I think it's called Catalyst, that program, and edit all of this later and fix the stabilization up later as well, which probably would improve it a lot later on in post. And that's available because it has that internal GPS or whatever it's called. It works out the exact coordinates of where it is, and then you can take those coordinates into that Catalyst software. I think it's Catalyst, and then it will use that to stabilize the footage in real time. So that is one way of doing it. So yes, it's never going to be as good as what those other cameras are, but I think if you're hand holding, I can hand hold the A9 and the A7 III now and get very, very acceptable results. I think with the active software now put in it, that does give that fraction of a crop, I'll be able to get really acceptable results. But I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to beat those other cameras in IBIS. It won't, and I think that's because they can't. The mount. It's the difference in the mount, I think, is the issue there. Let me just keep going down here. Rob said a few weeks ago you wondered why the Sony would delay the a7S III announcement after the R6 announcement. Maybe it was so they could say, but ours doesn't overheat. Maybe. Mark said the A7S seems to be in cahoots with Topaz Gigapixel AI for photo mode. Yeah, and that's what you would probably be able to use. Remember, it does use interpolation, though. That's one thing you've got to understand. It never will beat pixels. But it's certainly something that you can get away with. If you had to go up larger, you could use something like Topaz Gigapixel if you wanted to. The real question is, can Canon have a firmware update that makes overheating not as much of an issue? They are talking about it, and I'll show it in the next story. Apart from IBIS and price, and not even and EVF hot weather heating, the A7S is the perfect camera. I think the A7S III is really the best camera that's ever been announced up to this stage if you're in videography. If you're talking about stills, not so much, but the 12 megapixels makes it workable. But if you're talking about a video type camera that's in a small form factor, it's incredible. I mean, everyone that's got that camera, like I said, Potato Jet this morning said he cancelled his R5 pre-order and he's switching to Sony. If I was a Canon shooter, I would definitely consider purchasing the R5. I would love to see an APS-C in a full-frame body, A7000. I wanted to see that too. It would have been really interesting. Venom said, I have both Canon and Sony full-frame cameras, but after these last few months, if I had to hedge my bets, I think Sony is going to win this war. All right, so let's go on to the next story because we're going to go through some Canon stuff. And I don't want this to be too negative, but look, you have to tell the truth. And that's the thing about this, that I mean, I was seriously thinking about buying one of these, and I'll mention that a number of times. Let me just move this over because it's a different screen. So EOS HD did some testing, and I sort of spoke about this with Aaron the other day, but there's a couple of other things have come up in the meantime that I thought I'd discuss with you. So EOS HD have come up with something that is really damaging to Canon, really, and I think they're going to have to answer this. Now, before I do this, let me just show this, because where was it? Was it here? Oh. Let me just open up something else, because I think I've closed the thing down. New window. let me just go to Canon Rumors. All right, so let's have a look in here. Because I noticed here that they said that there's a new firmware coming. All right, and they've said in here, don't think it comes as much as a surprise that Canon will be releasing firmware updates for the Canon EOS R5. And it says, I've been told we'll see an update soon, but they're saying it might be incremental as well. And they're saying it may not come from one single firmware update. Now, the interesting thing is here that they're saying that it's going to add raw light for 8K recording. I think that's a great feature. So you're going to get a light version of that for the raw recording option. Also, they're going to add C-Log 3. Now, that's been a big issue because at the moment, the Sony a7S III has much more dynamic range, about 2 stops than what the Canon has. If they add C-Log 3, that probably will make them fairly similar. I think the a7S III probably will be still ahead, but C-Log 3 will definitely help bring the dynamic range closer than what it is at the moment. They're also saying that increased record limits, but don't expect a huge boost. They're talking about there with heat, but they're saying don't expect a huge boost. So in other words, there's still going to be big issues with the heating. Various bug fixes. So they are now saying that there's a update coming soon. So I just wanted to show that. But let me come back to this, because that's not all the issues really with this camera. There's some other things that really sort of need to be addressed. And there's a whole article, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's a whole article here talking about how they measured the sensor and they did all different stuff, measured it and stuff like that. Like, I'll leave the link down below so you can have a read of this yourself. But what they were saying was that after they were doing it, and this is really an extensive, thorough review of what they've done. I'm just sort of coming down where they're doing, and I'll talk about what they're saying down the bottom. So they're saying down here, like I said, I recommend you go and read this. They're saying that there should be no reason why this camera overheats, because they're saying that a camera should be able to go up to 95C, or any electronic should be able to go up to 95C and not shut down. That's what they're saying, that there should be no issue as long as it doesn't go over that. And they're saying that most of the time the camera was between 46 and 62 degrees C, so it shouldn't have shut down. In fact, they're saying here that at 62 C, it isn't too hot to be recording in 8K. And that's all the temperature reached when they were doing these tests. So they're saying, in theory, that it should not have those limits there. Now it gets worse, because this is from, a big Canon sort of forum, and they're saying, as it stands, and this is the killer, and I think must really hurt Canon. They're saying, as it stands, I believe them to be lying to their customers. And then if we look down the next stage down here, it says, my conclusion is that these are artificial software limits. The overheating problem after a few minutes of 8K does not exist, and nor does it at 46C. And also, this is very damaging as well. It says down here that the processor doesn't even have a thermal pad, and I'll show that in a minute. It doesn't even have a thermal pad or conductivity internally to ensure longevity and reliability. Is another smoking gun. I find this deeply unethical. In other words, what they're saying is that this is built to fail, and that is awful if that's the case. I really do not understand why Canon would have done that. I think that is disgusting, and it shows it, because there's a few articles out there that if you look at what's going on, this is another person that's pulled the camera down. Interestingly, it's saying it's using a Sony EVF, which is interesting. But they're saying he found the camera has no heat sink on the CPU. They didn't even use thermal paste. They've used nothing. So if you're talking about a camera lasting a number of years, this potentially will fail. And this is really bad. And this is maybe why perhaps they've put those thermal limits into the camera. It also gets worse because if you take the cards out, that's been proven then that it doesn't overheat. There's so many things that are going wrong with this. Like, why on earth you would not put a heat sink or something and use thermal paste on something that is going to run at these sort of temperatures is crazy. I mean, if you look, for instance, at the way this is the Sony design that they're using, and that this is a design that they're showing how the A7S is going to work, you know, you can sort of see how it's going to dissipate the heat all through the whole system. So this has a whole system built on getting the heat outside of that camera. So this is a massive difference if you're looking at how this works in the Sony a7S III as compared to Canon, which have used absolutely nothing. What were they thinking? I don't understand. Like, you know, you just compare this to what Canon have done here, and this is built to fail. Like, I would be terrified of this burning out and overheating and causing damage to everything that's internal in that camera, because, you know, the problem is it's not only that. It's like Potato Jet even said this morning, and others have said it, that the way the camera works is incremental, and what it does is if you're using it for stills mode, everything you're doing in that camera, the second you turn it on, is building up heat. If you're trying to get exposure, if you're changing menus, everything you're doing is building up heat, and that compromises the amount of time that you can shoot. And when you think that they didn't put any type of heat sink on that, I don't understand what Canon were thinking. I really don't. And that's why I think it should be recalled, and there should be something done to this to fix that, because as far as I'm concerned, that is a fatal error on this camera, and I wouldn't buy it for that feature alone. This camera is built to fail, and that is one of the real problems with that. Not having thermal paste, not having heat sinks built in, having no way, you know, to dissipate that heat, like you can see what they've done with the a7S III. And, you know, you think about it, that the Sony is a lot smaller body and it's not overheating. Whereas the Canon is a much larger body. It's obviously insulated inside. There's no way that heat can get out. I think it's a disaster. I really do think it's a disaster for Canon, and I just don't know why they would have done that. I really don't know why they would have done that, and someone needs to answer to that. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about that. I thought it's disgusting. The last story before we just open up Q&A, there is a rumor now that the Sigma 70-200 is coming this autumn. That'll be the US autumn, or your fall, as you call it. So it's coming very, very soon, it looks like. And I can't wait to see that. If it's anything like the other lenses Sigma are releasing, it looks like it's going to be fantastic. All the reports I've seen about the 85 looks incredible that they've brought out. The 85 1.4 looks amazing. And they're just saying down here that one of the sources says the reason has to do with Sigma trying to improve the autofocus algorithm. That's why they've decided to delay it. This works very good on prime lenses, but said it was not flawless on zoom lenses. They need time to improve it. So they must be trying to improve the AF, because the AF so far on the Sigma lenses tends to be really, really good. But again, it's going to be another option that you've got. It's probably potentially going to be half the price of what you're paying for the GM. So it's going to be another great option being designed from the ground up to work with the Sony mirrorless. So like I said before, you know, we're really blessed with this. So let's open up a little bit to Q&A before we finish. If you are not in the live chat, I'd love to know your thoughts about the Canon down below, because I think it's, you know, I mean, do you honestly think like I think? I would be so upset if I'd purchased that Canon R5 and now seen what's happened to it and seen the internals of that camera, because there's no excuse for modern gear to not have things like heat sinks and thermal paste and things like that in it. I mean, look, every computer will have it. And why do they do that? They do that to get the heat off your processor. It's just what they do. I don't understand what Canon are doing. So I'd love to know your thinking about that down in the comment box down below. All right, so let's go back to the Q&A. And by the way, guys, too, if you could give me a thumbs up, I really would appreciate it. It does help the channel. So I really would appreciate it if you could. Thanks for the 2 that gave me a thumbs down. Probably Canon lovers. Rob said a few weeks ago you wondered why so... Oh, I already read that one, yep. Let me keep going down here. If I was still a Canon shooter, yeah, I've said that before. Jeff said, IBIS future is digital. I agree. Jeff, I definitely agree with you. I think the IBIS is going to disappear in the future. Definitely. As the sensors improve and you get more resolution and things like that, you can do the digital stabilization very easily. Like the active stabilization in the ZV-1 is very good, actually. But I think as time goes on, the less moving parts you have in your camera, really, the better it is. So if you can do that digital, it will be way better. And if you think about it, that the a7 has a 6K sensor that downsamples. They probably, if they had their processor that could handle it, they could probably do amazing digital stabilization with that. But they need a processor. That might be something that the a7 IV has. It could be a 6K sensor that has incredible IBIS due to the fact that it could have this digital stabilization. The active stabilization may be taken to a next level with that. What else? So I agree with you. I think digital stabilization is definitely the future. Charbok said maybe Sony can make an APS-C version of the a7S III with a perfect Panasonic level IBIS and half the price. Interesting. It's supposed to be called the A7000, right? Well, that's what we were picking 2 years ago. Canon has to backflip on their crippling software timer. Yeah, see, not only that, it's got the 30-minute timer as well. Like, there's so many things that they've done wrong that they shouldn't have done with that camera. Having a 30-minute time limit is inexcusable for today. That just should not be there. It's such a pity because I was so hoping that camera was going to push Sony. Sam said, I work for a company that makes custom PCs and you just have human error sometimes where a worker forgets to put on thermal paste, though they never forget the heat sink. Yeah. US lawyers are looking at Canon and seeing green. I know some people would have lost a lot of work, I would think. It's not good. Especially when they were sort of touting that as one of their main features and then that whole system fell back and they didn't even have backups. It's awful. Wow, now I've got to look up if the R6 is blowing up like the R5. I think the R6 is better, but the R6 is compromised in other features, in the video aspects. So not buying the R5, no. Not overheating out of hot Australian weather is the main reason why the A7S didn't come out in 2018. Probably that might have been why. They've now solved that issue, it looks like. Scott said, I couldn't believe it when I saw they had nothing on the CPU to dissipate the heat. And all of that shutdown time is written in firmware. I know, it's so bad. It's awful. Steve said, contradiction. EOS HD says it doesn't overheat, then it says it's built to overheat. Which is it? You'd have to read that whole article again. The R5 is photocentric. The higher-end video specs are just little bonuses. Why hasn't there been a Sony a7S III photography review? If I get it, I will certainly give a photography review, Craig. The problem is, though, and this, you're exactly right, but this is Canon's fault because Canon were touting the features of the 8K video. That's all they pushed at the beginning of this. They didn't really push the photo side. They pushed the video side of this, and it's flawed. That's the issue. And it's not only that, it's the problem of the cool down time. You've got to wait 2 hours for this thing to cool down before you can shoot it to the full length again, and that's horrible. Craig, trust me, I was raving about the Canon when it was released, when I read the original specs, and I thought Canon had not brought in the Cripple Hammer, and I was so happy for Canon users. Like I said, I even thought that I might get one myself. There's no way on earth now I'd be getting the a7S III. Guy with the camera said the sun in AU is different to America. It's really harsh and would likely overheat the A7S III. Yeah, our sun is very, very harsh, that's for sure, in summer here. Aaron said, if the A5 had dual card slots, I would think about getting one. I love small cameras. Yeah, it's a pity it doesn't have that, Aaron. I agree. It's a real shame that it doesn't have that. Mark said, a very sad time. Buyers will stop purchasing any camera, very damaging for the industry. And that's right. At the moment, when things are this tight, you don't want to give anyone that thing of saying, I'm going to cancel. Like I said, Potato Jet said this morning that he cancelled his pre-order. That's another Canon user that's gone over to Sony. You just don't want to give anyone that sort of thing to do that. So it's really bad. I'm almost through teasing David about the A7000. I love it. Hero said, Manny said he was doing a photography review. I'll do one too. Definitely. I'll get it and I'll do a photography review. Max said, one reviewer showed that if you remove the card and send data to the Ninja 5, he did. There was no time, there was no heating limit at all with the card, so it must be all directly related to that. Everything must be mixed in the firmware with the card heat, and everything's built in it. So for some reason, when he took the CF Express cards out and ran it to the Ninja 5, there was no overheating at all. But you can't work like that. I mean, you can't sort of work that way. It's not practical. Hero said AU sun is like Florida heat. Yeah, it is. It's very similar. Jeff said, I wonder which engineer at Sony was fired for not turning the dual gain ISO off. Craig said, but now that we can all agree that it was a marketing fluff on Canon's part, why haven't you folks moved on? It's been maybe over a month. It seems like this has now become a for views topic. Well, it's more that it's current news, Craig. I mean, it's something people have to discuss. It's interesting, and hopefully if enough people make enough noise, trust me, Craig, and people in here will back me up. If Sony had done this, I would have blasted Sony like crazy, and everyone knows that that's what I would have done. Canon need to fix this, and this is why I'm saying this, that they need to fix it. Yeah, removing cards, you no longer shoot stills. Scott said, yeah, I have a 5D4 and a nice primes and simply can't see a huge difference in image quality myself. Plus, I thought of dropping 10K into the lens system. Really looking into Sony now and maybe shoot both systems for a while. Mark said, hide all the credit cards, Kerry. I love it. Kerry, kill me. Charbox said, digital stabilization doesn't only crop everything, it warps everything. It's like fake. Yeah, but I think they'll get better at it, Charbox. Remember, it's like everything. As time goes on, they'll get better and better and better at it. It's only new at this stage. I think you'll find eventually it will get better. Johnson City Ariel said, because, Craig, Sony builds cameras that work, don't think the R5 would like to go toe-to-toe with my A7 IV in photos. Hell, my 5-year-old A7 II blows the R5 sensor performance away. I think the R5 takes nice stills. I mean, it does take nice stills. I still think the dynamic range of the Sonys is better, though. That can't be denied. And it probably will be better in low light. Noel said, Canon users can take out their memory cards and record through the Ninja only, while Sony users can record on both card slots and the Ninja. Yeah, the great thing here is that you can record to the Ninja on the Sony, and then you can do 2 backups onto the Sony at the same time, and you can also record 2 proxies at the same time as well. That is incredible. So think about that. You've got a recording on the Ninja R5. You've then got a backup to both cards in the Sony camera, as well as 2 proxies. The other great feature that I love for the first time as well is that, please, Sony, I would love you to bring this to the other cameras, is that you have completely separate video and photo modes. Now, why that's so important is because, particularly if you want to shoot JPEG. So, for instance, if I shoot with my A9, well, it's not the A9, it hasn't got picture profiles, but say if I shoot with my A7 III or the A7R4, if you shoot with a picture profile, that's baked in to your JPEG files. That's no longer going to happen with the A7S III. So with the a7S III, because your photos and videos are on totally, they're totally separate menu functions, you can have a setup for your menu of photos, and you can have a setup for your menu of your videography. So none of the picture profiles or settings will be taken into your JPEG settings, which I think is fantastic, because trust me, the JPEGs are getting better and better, and I use them a lot now. So to be able to have that, I've made a few mistakes where I've set a picture profile, I forget, and I'm taking JPEGs, and then I've got the, I always shoot raw JPEGs, so I'm covered, but the JPEGs are useless because they've then got the, C-Log2 profile baked in, which is a real problem. So this is fantastic. So you can have a setup for video, and you can also have a setup for photography. And I think that's a great feature. And it's something I hope they do now in all of their cameras that come down from this point on. The closest hybrid competitor to the R5 is the only Sony a7R4. Need a good performance comparison. Digital strobe works fine as long as your camera has good rolling shutter performance like the S3 or the ZV-1. Good Lord, don't get me started on rolling shutter and banding in photos on the R5. 20 frames per second isn't much good when everything is crooked. Yeah, apparently the R5 does have bad rolling shutter. I think you'll find the A7S III will probably be very good. Really, the only camera at this stage that I know that you get no rolling shutter at all is the A9. The A9 is unbelievable, and the A9 is still my favorite camera, and that's one of the reasons why I adore the A9 so much. The electronic shutter is unbelievable. It's brilliant. Ron said, if Canon fixes the heat issue, sorry, but Sony will lose a lot of customers. I don't think so, Ron. I think the thing now is with this camera, I don't think people need 8K for starters. I don't need 8K. Really, as I've always said to you, I only need 4K 60. And from everything that I've seen, and I don't believe in a heartbeat that they're going to be able to fix that camera in its current state. There's no heat sink. It's not going to happen. They might improve it a little bit, but it's not going to happen. I think the Sony camera meets more of my needs particularly than what the R5 does. But people will do what they do. If people prefer Canon, they'll go to Canon. Canon was moving the industry forward with the latest and greatest tech, and now the movie may stay stagnant because of their presumable fail. Well, I think Sony have sort of changed that a little bit, Max, that they've brought out a camera that is completely usable. There's two differences here. The Sony camera I would take to a wedding and use in a heartbeat without having any issue or worry that it wasn't going to function. That I couldn't do that with the Canon R5. That is a problem. And as a working professional, I can't have a camera that is flawed like that, and that's the issue. Yes, you could buy multiple cameras, but I don't want to do that. I would like the camera to work without it having faults, and yeah, they haven't done that. It's a shame. The Hero said the R5 is still a great stills. It is. It's a great stills camera. Ron said, but if Sony comes out with a great A7 IV, Canon will have a hard time competing. That will be interesting if Sony bring out an incredible A7 IV, and I think they probably will. Does anyone know if the proxy recordings disables the AF features? I haven't heard that yet, guy with the camera, but yeah, no one's said that to me yet. I think that Canon needs to put the department that makes their glass in charge of making their cameras. I agree, because the glass is amazing. Laugh out loud, they would have been crucified just as bad. I'm just seeing if there's anything else there. If A5 4K 60, what about the A7 Mark IV? Well, we were saying before that it's going to be a crop mode, and it might just be S&Q mode. So there's going to be big differences between the A7 IV and what the A5 will have. It probably will be time limited as well, I would think. There'll be no audio involved as well. What picture profile do you use for JPEG? Just standard, Roger. That's all I use. Guy with the camera said, you don't use creative style? No. Charbox said, would be nice if the A7S III would record all-I or H.265 and a lower resolution, easy to edit 264 proxy to both cards. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to really look at everything that it offers. at the moment. I think if you go to All Eye, it's 264, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. And that's the one that's more easily to edit. I think that's the way it is. But I'll let you know more if I can get my hands on a camera. Mark said, yep, agree with the A9. There is still nothing that beats that camera. I know, I love that camera so much. Venom said, the A7S isn't what Canon is worried about. It's the A7 IV. I probably agree with you. You can record to both cards and externally, 3 outputs at once. That's the other thing too with the Canon. It won't back up. That's the other issue. Just wondering if they did anything to get a sweet JPEG. I'm sure the color profiles will be improved. It definitely has in the ZV-1. So I would say that the A7S will be better. I agree, Dave. The RF glass is the industry best glass out there. It is incredible. Completely agree with you. I saw a vid of someone adding a bit of sharpening to the normal 4K mode in color grading on the R5, and the image was very similar to HQ mode, thus alleviating the overheating issues. I'd have to have a look at it, Craig, to sort of see that. I know it was soft in itself, but yes, you could, but it's got other flaws. It's basically, isn't it interlacing or something? Not interlacing, it's line skipping or something. I think it's line skipping was the big issue. Oh, thank you so much for that donation, Travis. So many companies are going out of business. I'm afraid this Canon release could sink the company. I'm not kidding. It's serious. I don't think they're going to go broke, Travis, but it's going to hurt them. I think, look, let me be totally honest with you. I think Canon shooters are still going to buy the R5 because they love Canon. And I think that's probably what will happen. I think, though, it probably, a lot of people like myself, though, who were thinking about buying the Canon for the features. This was before I heard what the Sony a7S III was announced. Remember, the Canon came first. I didn't know what Sony were going to do, and I was thinking, well, I might go out and get a Canon R5 to give me the 4K 60 that I needed. Now that Sony have released the a7S III, there's no way I would go out and buy a Canon because I don't need to. The a7S III, as far as I'm concerned, is the best camera that's out there, available on the marketplace for what it does. So I wouldn't switch. But I think Canon will still be fine, but they need to look after their people. They need to fix this, or at least be honest about it and do something about it. I don't know what's going to happen, but something has to happen. But I don't think they'll go broke, and I would hate them to go broke because, you know, we need Canon. What else? David, I own the 3 Sigma APS-C primes and love shooting with my a6000. Can I get good results if I keep the lenses and upgrade to new full frame entry level? If you say, what, using the APS-C lenses on your full frame, you mean? Yeah, they'll still be as good quality, but you'll lose resolution. That's the problem. Remember, when you use APS-C lenses on your full frame cameras, you basically lose half the resolution. So it's a problem. So if there's not enough resolution in the camera, well, then you've got an issue. So yes, they'll still be just as good with a crop factor that you've got to take into it. Thank you so much for that donation. The heat sink is not the issue. The body must disperse the heat. Computers have fans, cameras have a body and must disperse the heat through thermal plastic. Craig, but why should you need to do workarounds to get the R5 working? And that's the problem. You shouldn't. I agree, Aaron. You should not have to have any workarounds to get a camera to function. Like, that is nuts. I mean, you're paying that sort of money. You shouldn't have to have workarounds. You should be able to shoot the highest quality that that camera gives you without having it overheat and fail. I agree with Aaron. That's not the point. Current A7S can do this. Oh, I'm not sure what that is. Tammy said, oh, g'day, Tammy. How are you? A lot of people didn't like the R when it first came out. I thought, yeah, and that's interesting because I was sort of a bit negative too when the R came out, Tammy. I thought that when the A7R came out that... Are you talking about the A7R? I thought they could have done better in some aspects with that camera as well. I was disappointed it didn't have 4K 60, for instance. So, yeah, and there we go. We've reached the end of the discussion. So thank you so much, everyone, for today. It's been... Oh, Canon, yes, the Canon EOS R, yeah. That's still flawed. I mean, I think the Canon ESR was flawed because it only had the one card slot. I thought that was terrible to bring out that with one card slot, Tammy. But that's talking from a professional. You know, I mean, when I have to have a camera that can do backups in the field. So, you know, that's the thing for me. I definitely have to have backups because I've had card fails. And that's the thing with that. So thanks so much, Aaron, for saying that. Join us next week again with the show with Aaron, guys. We will be back next week. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Roger said, do you think the A7R4 will get the firmware update? No, I don't think we'll get anything like that at all. Charbox said, I see 7 different gimbals in the back of David Office. I think it's the A7S is the perfect gimbal camera. It would be, Charbox. How many have I got back there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9. There's 9 gimbals back there. And I've also got others that I can't fit on the shelf. I really should sell some, really. I will once I'm down of lockdown. Once lockdown's finished, I'm going to have a big sell out of all the gear I'm not using. Roger said, great show, David. Thanks, you rock. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that. Stephen said, I'd much rather have the option to use 4K HQ for a limited time than not at all. Yeah, true. At least you have the option to use it if you have. Like I said, the more the problem for me with the EOS R5 is the fact that you get that constant overheating, even when you're turning it on, is the issue, and the cool down time. See, the Sonys don't have that problem. If the Sonys overheat, a couple of minutes later, you can shoot with it again. The Canon is flawed. If you have to wait 2 hours before it's fully usable again, you know, is not good. Which gimbal is your preference? I'll tell you the two. My favorite 2 gimbals are the Moza Aircross. The Moza Air 2 is my favorite gimbal, and also the Firetech AK2000S. If I want to travel light, I like the 2000S, the Firetech one. If I want to do more heavy work, really robust stuff with bigger lenses, and really the ultimate gimbal for me is the Moza Air 2. I adore that gimbal. It's fantastic. Really love it. It's the best gimbal I've ever had. Like I said, the Firetech AK2000 is the second best one that I use. I prefer that than the Moza Air Cross, but it's great. Craig said, I think the recovery time is a flaw. Yeah, I agree, Craig. That's one of the biggest issues, I think, with that is the recovery time. You know, you're at a wedding, it overheats, you can't use it. That is a fatal flaw. And that would be the biggest issue for me. I mean, how can you tell your client or you know, or your bride, sorry, I can't use the camera because it's overheated. I've got to wait for it to cool down. It's a massive flaw. All right, guys, thank you so much. And I'll have a great weekend if I don't pop on for anything live or whatever over the weekend. So have a great weekend. Apart from that, I'll see you all in the next video. Please leave all your comments down below. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love it if you could. Getting close to 30,000 subscribers now, so I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I'll get there. Thank you so much for all your support. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.